Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. I thought we'd have a quick talk about the elephant in the room, or the elephant in the security industry. There are a few topics I want to touch on, and I'd just like to say this is based on my own personal opinion and what I've gathered, the information I've gathered, and the time that I've spent in the industry. So if you do have a different opinion, or if something is not quite correct, please put it down below. And if you do agree or disagree, you're welcome to put a comment down below as well. Okay, so let's get started. The elephant in the industry, security industry. Now, this is taken from the New York Times. It's not different to what's been happening around New Zealand. It's been happening in Sydney, Melbourne, all different places, especially in the US. Locksmith scammers, people operating as locksmiths who are not actually locksmiths, and there are certain loopholes which allow them to practice or not practice. Some things they don't need a license for, some things they do. It was only yesterday I saw a video on a current affair, and a locksmith in Brisbane got called out, and the customer said, "Do you have a license?" And they said, "Oh, you don't need a license for opening locks." So there are a lot of little loopholes in the security industry that allow people to be out there practicing and passing themselves off as locksmiths. We've seen it a lot in the US, and now we're starting to see it more and more in Australia. A lot of people are doing write-ups about it. A lot of good locksmiths out there are doing write-ups about it. MLAA did a write-up, and a lot of other people. So we're not going to be talking about the scammers. We're going to be talking about the loopholes which allow the scammers to get through, and the problem that is in the security industry right now, and something that a lot of people don't really realize because times have changed and legislation has changed, and that's what we're going to be talking about. All right, so SLED, Security Industry Registry, run by New South Wales Police Force or New South Wales Government, and basically the SLED is the governing body for the security industry. And we'll just quickly read here our purpose. Our purpose to effectively regulate the security industry within New South Wales by administering, developing, promoting, and enforcing security legislation throughout induction and compliance activities that foster good practice standards. Okay, so let's look over that last line there. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind as we go through here. Okay, and also just remember they effectively regulate the security industry. Just put them in the back of your mind for now. That's their purpose, SLED. Here we go. Here, the class that we're most interested in is one that appeals to us, which is Class 2C. And in New South Wales, you would need a security license which has a 2C authorization to do locksmithing activities. Let's just read that there. Class 2C, authorize the license to sell, install, maintain, repair and service and provide devices in relation to security equipment, including electronic security and equipment and barrier equipment, and to act as a locksmith. Now, first of all, I see an issue with including barrier equipment. Barrier equipment for a locksmith to install, that's fine, but barrier equipment shouldn't really call you a locksmith. If you're installing barriers, doesn't mean you can start working on somebody's master key system. Okay, but if they've included barriers, that means that locksmiths should be installing the barriers, not people who just basically sell barriers. But there is no problem with people who just sell barriers, parking barriers and things like that, just doing their thing, but they can't incorporate us all in the same boat. We're not in the same boat. Installing locks, master keying, being in a position of trust is different to somebody who cuts and bends pieces of metal and mounts them on the side of a parking lot. Big difference. So let's just move on there, but they've incorporated that for now. Class 2, here we see here, security consultant. To have this class here, there is formal qualifications and things you need to do here. Security consultant, but yet you can be a consultant under the 2B and tell people what type of locks they should put on their house, or tell people what type of security they should have, and because you're basically a sales rep, so you're consulting them by selling. So that's kind of trivial, but what I'm saying is here, 2A, you need qualifications, you need to do a course to do that. 2B, you don't. So if you're in a hardware store and you'd like to tell people on what type of locks they should be buying, you can get a 2B and say, I've got a security license and you should listen to me on these type of locks. Even though I don't install them, I just sell them, and even though I can't maintain them, I can just sell them. So basically, you're talking, it's just a security mouthpiece with no, well, maybe or maybe not, no qualifications to actually back it up, because they're not installing it, repairing it, as a Class C2 is an installer and a repairer. Class 2D is a trainer, and you do need to do a course on that one there. And 2C, which is the topic of this video, is what we're looking at here. Security equipment, authorization to sell, install, maintain, repair, blah, blah, blah. We've gone and to act as a locksmith. That's the category we're talking about now. And when I say it's the elephant in the room, I'm going to show you there's some big loopholes here which I am not happy with. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's doing anything about it. And if we don't, it's going to be a problem. Okay, so to highlight how bad this problem are, let's go through here. This one here, can I get recognized for prior learning? Question, all these sort of questions. A question here that blew my mind, which I'm just not happy about, because I've spent years in this industry doing it the right way, getting to where I am, and other people are going to be thinking along the same lines. Are there any training qualifications requirements to apply for a 1E monitoring security center, which is like alarms and things, but now they've included 2B or 2C license, and it's a no. So there are no qualifications, okay, to be in a monitoring center. That's okay, because you're sitting there in front of computers and just reporting on alarm signals. You're in a controlled environment, and you know, there is no, that's a different story. 2B, seller. Okay, so if you want to start selling, let's say, a security product, whether it be a security screw or a deadlock over the counter, no, you don't need a license for that. You don't need qualifications for that, but you can apply for a license. 2C, now 2C is locksmith, and no, you now don't need any qualifications to apply for a 2C license, which allows you to sell, maintain, repair, open security products. This is the elephant in the room. This is off the scale. It never used to be this way, but now the legislation has changed, and this is what I'm getting from the current New South Wales Police Gov. I didn't believe it myself until I started looking into it, and perhaps I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, the legislation has changed, and that's the elephant in the room right now, which is a huge problem. Okay, so this is a standard security license. This is just one I put offline. This is not this bloke. Anyway, this is what you get right now. You can apply for this. This is what I have. This is what all other licensed locksmiths have out there. Okay, we all have one of these in New South Wales. Different locations have different colours and different licensing. We're talking primarily New South Wales. Okay, so for the 2C here, that is basically that license you just saw there. That bloke had everything. Okay, but for locksmiths, we're just talking about this one here. Electronic security barriers to act as a locksmith. So that bloke could act as a locksmith. He could do any of those ones there with that license there. Now, there is quite a number of people out there advertising as locksmiths, saying that, you know, $45, $10, $20 to get in. And these are these guys we're seeing on a current affair where they're advertising such a cheap price, calling themselves locksmiths, using Google AdWord to advertise something. And most of the time they're not qualified, and they're basically conning people and tricking people into believing they are a service which they are not qualified for, or they're providing a service which they're doing very poorly and completely overcharging. So ripping customers off and giving them a false sense of security that, you know, advertising for something they're not. Misleading, using misleading advertising, providing a false sense of security using the word locksmith, and ripping them off. You can paint it any which way you want, but that's basically what happened. MLAA did a write-up on it here, and it's been doing the rounds in Australia, been doing the rounds in America and New Zealand, and it's going everywhere. So let's move on. Now, with this Class 2 license that you now don't need any requirements for, it means that dodgy operators can go through and actually get a Class 2 license. And all I can see from this New South Wales SLED is that basically fees, payment, Class 2, and you go through and you see what's actually needed. You fill in an application form just like this, and you come down here, and yes, you need to provide all your details. Yes, you can't be a criminal or anything like that, your date of birth, address, and you come down here, yeah, okay, you pay your money, no big deal. Evidence of being an Australian citizen or being able to work in Australia, yes, you need to provide that. Security license history, if you've got it. If you don't, then you simply come down here and tick which one you want. You could tick this box right here, send it back through, pay your money, and in about 6 or 7, well, let's see, we've made the criteria. Current requirements for Class 1, they put the Class 1 there, but they don't put the Class 2 there. And as we saw before, no requirements. That's why it's not worth putting a sheet on, no requirements. Because even under Class 1, security guard, you need to have completed all of these modules to become a security guard. But for Class 2, now you don't. So this is a type of license. We've gone over that. Here's some of the requirements that you will need to do. You will need to be of 18 years of age, be a fit and proper person to hold a license, have a relevant competency or experience required. Now, that's open for negotiation. If you've worked for a barrier person, if you work for a screen door person, if you've trained overseas, if you have done a 1 week course, if you've done one of these online courses, this can all be equivalent to relevant competency and experience required. Now, this makes a bit of sense, but the problem is that they're not specifying what requirements are required or what competency level is required, and there is no standard outlined as far as you need to have completed this course or that course, as they've done with 2A and 2D, 1A, B and C. So they've left this big loophole right there on category C, which is locksmith. Okay, down here you can't be a terrorist, a few other things, national police check, things along those lines. So that's what you need. But when they say these type of things here, they're not outlining what is actually needed. Okay, and once again, just basically acting as locksmith 2C. I'm going to get to my point now. So this is your license as it is currently. You have your name up the top, card number, identification number, license number, and the classes that you are categorized in here on the left, and when it's going to expire. Now the card is good because it's hard to copy because they've done this silhouette over the top. It's blue, it's clearly identifiable from any other type of license, and it's got a big symbol here right in the middle of when it's registered till. Now that goes back to my other point, that I think a lot of this security licensing is purely for the money, and it's not doing as much for the regulatory authority as we would be expecting, and keeping the customers safe and keeping the industry honest as I would like. And by having this big thing here, why is the expiry date so important to put in the middle when it's also down here on the right? That's a question I'm just putting out there, but it could be a clear indication of what is actually going on here with this security industry registry and the way that we're going. And the way that we're going, I feel it's about more of giving everyone or getting everyone to have a license, rather than enforcing who should or shouldn't have a license based on competency. Okay, now if you do have a license, you can lodge a report here for non-compliance with SLED, lodging a report with non-compliance to SLED. Okay, what that means is that if an operator has a license and they're not complying within the rules, you can lodge a complaint with SLED and then they can take it up, but you need to have a license to do that. And with licenses not needing any requirements, I guess now everybody can go get a license. So what type of complaints we can do here? Criminal matters, including not being limited to assault, fraud, drugs, etc., tax evasion, cash or under award payments, failure to pay penalty rates, a disqualification of service or license. So trading without a license, not paying your workers right, avoiding tax or other criminal matters. That's what you can use the SLED website and make a complaint under those conditions. Moving on now, let's look at the fees, because let's get to it, right? It's all about the fees. It is all about the fees. Master's license. You can get yourself a master license, and it sounds very big and very proper. You just need to pay your money and fit within the criteria of a normal, reasonable person able to work in the industry. Your Class 1, Class 2 licenses start from $160 and go up to $640 for 5 years. So that's the fees of what it all is. Amendments are $65. So, I mean, it's not obtainable. Look, if you're wanting to get a locksmith license, just pay your money. Go get a Class 2 and call yourself a locksmith. Now, basically, there is a shortage in the industry. Okay, there is a shortage. It's less and less people who are getting qualified, going through doing the course in New South Wales. We've seen it from when I recently did my course to a couple of years back. There was a big decline, 20, 30%, 50%, approximately those, somewhere in those type of figures. Less and less locksmiths coming out, which means that for people running businesses, it's harder and harder to find staff. Now, being that said, doesn't mean that we should reduce the criteria for being a locksmith. It doesn't mean we should start handing out licenses. We can take other people from other country, but doesn't mean that we should lower our standard at all. They will have to comply to our standard, in my opinion. So here, no need to have any training, no special licensing, nothing. Nope. Just move on, pay your money. We've got that. Now I'm going to give you an example of some different locksmiths and just show you an outcome. And now this is based on my experience. Okay, let's take locksmith 1. He's had 4 weeks experience. Let's take locksmith 2. He's done 4 years of work and he's done an apprenticeship. Let's take locksmith 3. 4 years of work and 15 years on the job. Let's take locksmith 4. No training, self-taught by YouTube, books and online courses, etc. Locksmith 5, 5 years installing grills and bollards. And locksmith 6, trained overseas, 6 years working in the industry. Now, all these people can have the 2C license under this category, but there is a difference. Locksmith 1, he's had 4 weeks experience, so basically very little experience in an industry like this. To be honest with you, most people will agree, after doing my 4 years of locksmithing, it wasn't until I did complete at least 10 years on the job that I was able to basically be efficient, fast, effective, and know exactly what I was doing. Up until that stage, there was still things that stumped me, still things I was learning on a daily basis, better ways to do things, perfecting the skill. Okay. You're always still learning, even 20 years on. So 4 weeks experience, locksmith number 1, not very experienced. Apprenticeship, that's a correct way of doing the locksmithing course and getting the most amount of knowledge is by doing the apprenticeship. So let's now look at this possible scenario. Okay, 6 different people, all with the same license. Customer can't tell them apart. Everybody's talking the talk, walking the walk, but what's the difference? Let's look at it. Let's look at the invoice, okay? First of all, this locksmith here with a little experience, he's charging, a little bit cheaper than normal, $100, and it took him 2 hours to complete. The quality is low. Customer has no idea. Does it work? Well, barely. Okay, so security is low, okay, because he just doesn't have the experience to maintain and keep that security level to its highest. What's worse is he hasn't been in the industry too. He hasn't been screened by his work colleagues or his boss by doing an apprenticeship, and he hasn't proven himself to be a worthy person by being able to withstand that type of training and how would you say, basically, if you are a non-ethical person, a liar, a cheat, you won't last long in the security industry, and your boss or somebody else along the lines will find out and you'd be kicked out. So this person here, very little experience, really doesn't give enough time to show a person's integrity. They produce $100, 2 hours, low quality, but they all look the same on Google. So how does the customer know the difference of what they're getting here? Example number 2. Locksmith number 2, 4 years experience, done an apprenticeship, he charges $110. So there's no real difference in the money there. And he took 1 hour. He completed the job in 1 hour, and his quality level is a lot higher because he's completed the TAFE course and he's been working with a boss who's been training him as well. Okay, so that's a good scenario. Option number 3, 4 years apprentice, 15 years on the job, charges $130. He's a professional, charges a standard rate because he needs to be paid. He's got a lot of experience. 15 minutes it took him to do the job, and the customer got quality 5 out of 5, basically because the person has the experience, they complete it in 15 minutes, they know exactly what they're doing, and they've maintained the security for the customer. So the security hasn't gone down, it's gone up, and they've also proven themselves to be an integral person in the industry because they've lasted that long. Okay, moving on to option number 4. Option number 4, no training, self-taught YouTube. Okay, charges $250, 2 to 4 hours, quality 1 to 5. This is not unheard of. This happens all the time. People go out with these crazy prices, $45. They're charging $150, $200 to unlock one lock, as where another locksmith will just do it in 1 hour or 15 minutes and charge about 110. These people get in with what they call come-in prices, crazy prices, trick people into thinking they are something that they're not. They've had very little training, very bad work, and you're lucky if it's working or if they haven't made more damage afterwards. So that's locksmith number 4. Let's move locksmith number 5 now. 5 years installing bollards and grills. Okay, and once again, their price range is completely out because they've had to invest 3 hours. So the customer sees them investing 3 hours and they think it's a fair price, $300, but what they really don't realize is that they could have had it done in 1 hour by an apprentice with 4 years experience for $110, but these people put on the big show, the big dance, all that, and reason being why is because they've got a 2C license, but they haven't done anything to do with what they're working on. When you're a locksmith, you work on locks, you do must keying, you do installing, you do all these different modules to through the TAFE to actually qualify you as a locksmith. This person here has been installing bollards and grills. He's very good with a welder, very good with metal, paint bollards and mount them in parking lots and all this sort of stuff. But because they got the license, he decides to work as a locksmith, and look what's happening now. He's not charging the fair price. Customer's not getting a fast and efficient and effective service. He's taking 3 hours to do it. He's making good money. He thinks he's doing a great job. Customer says, okay, well, I think they've done a good job. I'm not sure. But the truth is the quality's down to 1 to 5. Not unheard of. Locksmith number 6, trained overseas, 6 years working in the industry, charges $444. Why? Because certain countries have certain practices. Not all locksmiths are the same. Some locksmiths train a different way. Some locksmiths like to replace locks rather than repair them. And I have seen this and heard of this about people coming from other countries where a standard locksmith will just simply recode a key for $110. This other locksmith might come along and say, I've been working in this industry 6 years and you just need to replace it. You want a new key? Just replace the lock. Next minute the bill starts adding up and adding up and adding up. 2 hours, okay, sure, they can replace the locks. They can do things like that. But the quality is basically replacing locks to increase profits when they could be paying as little as $110. So how does this differ from, let's say, a standard local qualified tradesperson who's been in the industry and done an apprenticeship? You would get a quicker time, more efficient, more effective, and more cost-effective solution to your locksmithing problem compared with people who do things a different way. So we do have a bit of a standard and an expectation within our locksmithing, especially in Australia, of what you should be getting. So other people, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but other people from overseas are more inclined to just replace rather than repair or rekey, and that can be non-beneficial for the client, and the client has no way to determine any skills from these people. They all hold the same 2C license. They don't know where they're from. They don't know how many years they've been here. They don't know what they've been qualified in, but they've been accepted and put in a position of trust because they've got a little blue card that says security license 2C, and that's the elephant in the room. So let's move on. Basically tarring everybody with the same brush. I just covered that. We're not all the same. You can have 20 years experience and you can have somebody who's got 1 year experience. Not two locksmiths are the same. Trusted, when you basically are a locksmith and you've got your locksmith license, people will put you in a position of trust, assuming that all the checks and balances have been done and that you should be in that position of trust. As a locksmith, I've been in everywhere from the police headquarters to major medical places with large amounts of drugs, rooms with cash all over the walls from RSLs, I don't know, maybe $1 million in cash being counted. You name it. You're in positions of trust where that you need to be an above board person to be in those positions, and the common customers and the consumers assume you're in that position because you actually have that license, and they're assuming that everything has been done, but in truth it hasn't. It hasn't. You can get one license to put you in positions of trust where you might have got a license because you've been installing bollards, or you might have got a license because you've done an online course or something along these lines. There is no shortage of locksmiths going around basically doing bodgy work, and you cannot tell. Now this is Google Review. We cannot use Google Review as a governing board to tell on how good somebody is. We cannot use reviews online to let you know whether they're good or bad, because there's so many fake reviews. People are writing their own reviews, and it just doesn't make sense. This is what we have to be able to know if somebody's had 20 years experience, is going to do me a good job and a good professional finish or not, or whether or not they're ripping me off. We go off these Google reviews, and it can be as fake as Google AdWords, where they're advertising a product and they're not even qualified to do that. They've had no training. So this is your standard security license. Nobody knows the difference between A, B, C, D, and E. Customers don't know. They can't check. I can't tell if this person has been in the industry 20 years ago, had 2 years experience, or if he's been in the industry all his life and has 20 years experience, or what level of qualification he holds to have this license. It's just a blue card. This is what I'm suggesting here. Now let's get to it. Elephant in the room. A, B, C, D. Okay, he's got all the categories there. Great. Now I'd like to see itemized 2S, 2C. I would also like to see how long this person has been holding this license for. So I can say this person has been holding this license since. I mean, this big right here in the middle, when it expires, who cares when it expires? You renew it. But how long has he currently consecutively held this license for? That's important. And this, in this example, and this, I'm just using common sense and just relevance to come up with these ideas here, because this is something that is such a loophole. Each of these categories here should be itemized on what they actually are, to sell, to see as a locksmith, and then we want to know how long he's been in the industry so we can gauge up when I'm employing this person. Okay, he's got 20 years experience, not somebody who's been around for a year or 2 years, and then I'm asking him or putting him in a position of trust that they've only proven their integrity for 2 years, they've only been on the job for 2 years. If you pick somebody who's been around a lot longer, you've got a more likely chance of making a more informed decision on which locksmith you want to choose based on that number alone. Now let's go to point number 3, certification. Each course that you do, any number or letter here should be accommodated with a certification, meaning that you've done a course for that particular category. Having one that says no requirements needed, like 2C locksmith, is ridiculous. Certification, as far as, here we go, this course, and this course should be printed on the license. Okay, and it should say, if it doesn't have a certification which is relevant to an Australian course which is listed, it should have a competency exam which they have completed. So if you don't have MT 44, you have COMP 44, so tested to the competency level of 44. So if there's no course available, there should be a competency test. Now, if I'm going to redesign the security industry license, I'm going to put it as this. I'm going to redesign it, number up the top, photo there, and I want to put a chip in it. The chip will come in handy in the future, paywave, or other information that could be held on that chip. When you present to a new boss, here's my license, he should be able to put it in a reader, bring up your file, bring up your history. It's a better way of doing things. Let's be honest, okay? You should have on this chip your information relevant to your security or time in the security industry, so that you can be gauged, assessed, and leveled and ranked. That's the way it should be. So if the security industry register is giving out these type of things, that's the way it should be. Once again, so I like this example more than what we currently have. Name, okay, expiry date's a bit big. Classes, certification, and time in industry. That's what I'm calling for. That's what we need. Okay, TAFE New South Wales, Certificate 3 in locksmithing. That's basically what you need, and that's what the course that I did took. 4 years, well, it says 3 here, but it can go over to 4 depending on how fast you work. 7 hours per week, and if you don't do this course, they should have an accreditation. If you've been overseas and you haven't done this, there's 24 modules here, which was on the screen before. What you for fee details, where are we here? If you haven't done that, here we go, units. If you haven't done all of these 25 units and you've done equivalent overseas, there is no reason why you can't go to this organization and say, I would like to sit the assignment and the test to be proven competent in each of these categories. Okay, because some of them are not that important. You know, some of them are computing or communicating, but a lot of them are very important. You come down here to maintaining, gaining entry, master keying, all of these ones here. Producing a key, developing a master key system. These ones are vital to call yourself a locksmith. If you don't have these skills, or you haven't done this, or you cannot be tested to a level to pass this course, I mean, if you've done it overseas, great. Come over here, do your test, right? Sit down and do the test to produce a key. And once you've done that, you don't have to actually sit down and do the course. You should be able to just do the test to prove that you're competent, especially if you've earned your ranks overseas. And you should, it all should be to a level of this right here, 25 at least. This doesn't say that they're a great locksmith. This just says that they have the basic ground knowledge to call themselves a locksmith. That's what I'm saying here. That's what I'm saying. There's an elephant in the room. There's a massive loophole. And by not including all of these modules as a requirement as a locksmith in New South Wales, you're basically leaving the customers out to dry. You're not supporting the locksmithing industry as far as conserving the integrity, and all sorts of funny things are going to start happening as far as customers getting work done that didn't need to be done, overcharging, ripping off, scams, and things along these lines. It should be clear and cut. If you've got a license, you've completed this, and customers should take some sort of refuge in knowing that that person is licensed and qualified, same as we would do with doctors. Now, as I was saying before, if you haven't learnt in Australia and you don't have time to do the 24 modules, don't worry. There should be a simple way, a method of getting your skills recognised, rather than being recognised overseas for a lesser course and then coming to New South Wales and saying, look, I've got my ticket overseas, I would like my ticket here. Because that happens all the time. You can go to places in Australia which has a very small training for locksmithing, come to New South Wales and say, oh, I'd like to be accredited here now. You haven't done all that time. You haven't done all those modules. You're not as efficient. You haven't been trained as much, but yet you can still now go get that license as well. So that's not making sense. Not making sense to me at all. Okay, so this is the license I would like to see right here. And this is what we all should have. Certification down the bottom, and it should clearly be marked out with all these details here. Okay, consumer protection. The one thing about this whole video is the consumer should be protected. If I go right now to a doctor's surgery, I have that sort of consumer protection that I am getting a doctor who's been trained and they've done their time and they know what they're talking about. At the moment, we don't have consumer protection. So it moves back to the security industry registry. Okay, these people here who should be governing us, okay, should be giving consumer protection. These whole organization, the function of this organization is to keep integrity in the industry, as we read out before. But customers are not getting they're not getting that protection at the moment, especially not with the way that it is set up, and especially not with the way that they're not needing the credentials. If you don't need anything to get into the industry, then what's going to happen? You're going to end up with cowboys, you're going to end up with people overcharging, you're going to end up with people who don't know what they're doing, charging for things they don't know what they're doing, making a complete mess. So there's no consumer protection. It's a big one. It's a false sense of security for the consumers. And the people who should be providing that consumer protection should be really, and all they need to do is just basically put, criteria needed on it. And that's what it was earlier on when I joined up, and now it's changed. A lot of certificates around. Look, this is a company, ASIL. They have their standard code of practices, things along these lines. Now you can join up, and you can pay your money, just like you can your security license. And as long as you don't break the codes or anything like that, you'll stay a member. Consumers see this, they feel some sort of protection or confidence by seeing these types of certificates. But the truth is, this is once again something which has not been earned. It's something that you paid for, and there's many different ones. You can just pay your money, join, and as long as they don't find out that you've done anything unethical or you haven't broken the codes and rules, you can remain a member. And customers can feel that they're actually getting somebody who's spot on or well-to-do or really certified, when in fact it seems just like a whole heap of money that people are throwing at it. You throw your money at your 2C license, don't need no requirements, there you go, $600, you got it for 5 years. Then you throw a bit more money at a master's license too. Master's license sounds like you're an absolute professional, right? No, it means you're able to run a business, and you pay the security industry money to get a master's license, but there's no requirement. So it's just a money. And now the security industry is making their money on their fees. Good, great. And they can penalise you now. They put a name and number to your face and your name. They even fingerprint you. So if something comes up and you do break the law or you break their rules, and that's, basically to... If they do all these things, basically it's a way of getting money, but it's not really a way of keeping the integrity in the industry. And this is the problem. It's not it shouldn't be about money. It should be about what certifications you've got, how long you've been in the industry, how well recognised you are. And some of these other organisations, although they do quite a lot for the industry, and I'm happy to be a member of quite a few of them, it doesn't give the customer that guarantee that you don't have a shonky cowboy working for you, or that you've got people working for you that don't know what they're doing. It doesn't give you that guarantee. Only thing that gives you that guarantee is a certification, which is down the bottom here, these things right here. Okay, now security licensing industry are the people who need to really step up their game and do something there. So that's why I'm saying this, because they've got no problems in telling us what we can and can't do, should do, and all of it's pretty basic. If you can't comply to it, don't get a security license. But I believe it's time that Locksmiths actually turned around and said, you've been telling us for so long what to do. We're telling you we want to lift the game here, increase the integrity in the industry, and basically separate the good from the bad by applying more caliber of training and making sure that everybody is trained to a certain specific level. And if you're not, you do the competency exam, and to be in the industry you need to have that, just like they do for 2A and 2D. 2C is the exact same thing. Okay, they just can't keep giving licenses out to everybody. At the moment, there is no requirement for a 2C license. It is absolutely crazy. There was when I joined up. You needed to prove that you've got suitable training. That's what it said there before. And then you saw the other document. Any requirement? No. So basically, it's a cornflakes license. You just cut out your license, start doing what you think's good, and the customers have. They're not getting somebody who's trained. They're not getting somebody who knows what they're doing. They're just getting somebody there who waffles, talks a talk, and walks a walk, wasting money. Whether or not they're giving good security or not is questionable. But yeah, if you're in a position of trust giving security, you need to have a license and training to do so. We're not all the same, but we're equal. This is what I'm talking about. Not all locksmiths are the same. We come from different places. We've got different levels of experience. Even if you do the same trade, you're going to be different. every locksmith's different. Some have specific niches, some have studied a lot, some have specialised in safes or automotive or electronic security. We're not all the same, but we are equal, and to be equal, we all have to be up to that general level, just like doctors. All doctors have completed their doctorship, and then after that they go into specialised sections, and we need a level of representing how good a person is on the actual license, and by using years and showing all the certifications they're certified in is exactly what I'm talking about. The reason we're doing this is because if we don't, there's no winners. The security industry will go down. There'll be more cowboys in the industry. There'll be more con men getting around, more people ripping people off. And if that happens, we are all losers. Reason being is because there will be a level of trust which is lost. Every job that a locksmith goes out, a trained, qualified locksmith, good locksmith, been doing 20, 30 years, every time they go out or they try and win a new customer, they're going to have to fight against the reputation and the slander and the rubbish that has been thrown or advertised on TV shows or advertised on Today Tonight. We're going to have to fight against that, win the customer back, get them to be confident with us, and if the slightest thing is to go wrong, we're going to get bad reviews, this, that and the other. Oh, he was a scammer, that was a scammer, when it's might not be that. We're basically all going to be fighting for our work a lot harder, and we're all going to get categorized and tarred with the same brush and called scammers or rip-off artists and things along those lines. So it is important to maintain the integrity and the security and the level of education if we hold licenses. And what I think this should be done, there needs to be an example, and if New South Wales they do it as an example, hopefully they'll carry it on around Australia, and at least that way consumers are going to have some sort of confidence. And that way we can all do our job, because the industry is actually less and less people getting into the industry as it is. So bosses are finding it harder and harder to find locksmiths, so their businesses aren't growing. Then we're having to pay more and more to keep locksmiths on staff, and the quality and the training of the locksmiths is going down and down and down, to the point where now companies, just to maintain their regular customers, having to import people from overseas who don't have the qualifications, don't have the same ethics training and all these things, and businesses are suffering. It's not just going to be the bosses, it's going to be pretty much all the people who are in the game doing it properly. So that's the elephant in the room, and here's my suggestion. Once again, I want to see how long you've been in the industry. I want to see what categories you are certified under, and if you do bollards, it'll be a 2B. Don't incorporate bollards with locksmithing, and if you're a locksmith, it should say 2L. Locksmithing. When you start categorizing things, throwing all things in together, it's absolute rubbish. It's not showing the consumer, it's showing them that you're paid for a license, and they're all throwing us all in the one boat when it shouldn't be like that. And if you've got different certifications, there should be all numbers along here which can be, flip the card over, look them up, or look them up online. So when I walk up to a customer and she says, oh, do you have a license? I say, yeah, here's my license, because the security industry registry actually requires everybody with a security license to display it. What's the point of displaying it if nobody can read it? And what's the point of even having one if all you got to do is pay for it and there's no qualification? And what's the point if it doesn't allow consumers confidence in knowing the person they've employed has the skills and has done the course for what they're asking him to do? Now, certifications, that's exactly what that does. You walk up, you show your client that, they say, I'm looking at getting a master key system for this huge building. It's probably going to be $2,000-$300,000. It's going to be $2,000-$3,000 doors. Now, I need to know that you're certified in locksmithing, master keying, for example, and you can look at that. Oh yeah, there's a certification. Let's take, for example, somebody else wants to do a government contract and they need bollards, and they need to be certified. They're looking for a person that's certified in bollards. One of these must say bollards here. Okay, it just doesn't cut it to incorporate everything under 2C and then have no necessary supporting documents as far as education and what level of education. Different parts of Australia have different levels of education. If I was to go to, I think it's Queensland, the course for locksmithing is half the size as it is in New South Wales. So it's just not good enough. You should have all the categories you're listed for, and that way, there's a bare minimum. People can look it up and they can have some confidence in the actual person they're employing. They see their security license, which is displayed. They can look at it. They can do a search online on SLED. Yes, it's current. They can see it's current. It looks genuine, anti-counterfeit, all that sort of business. Has your face on it, identifying you, because it's not going to be the first time that people use other people's licenses to trade, right? That stuff happens all the time as well. But this one has your face on it, so you can't do that. Can't be counterfeit, can't be copied. Tells you how long you've been in the industry. Now, if I was to look at this person and say he's been in the industry from 1965, I would call that out right there. No. He doesn't look old enough to be you know what I mean? What are we talking? 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. You know, it just doesn't look right. So that tells you also how much experience the person has in the industry. So if I'm looking for somebody and I want them to do a good job and know that I'm getting a professional, if they've got 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years, 5 years, I can gauge up what type of professional I'm getting by that right there. Whether or not they'll ever do it is up to them. Anyway, I've waffled on enough. Not having about the security industry, I'm just saying that things need to change, and the legislation they've got in place now does not really protect the consumer. It's more geared up for issuing licenses. It seems more revenue than it is protection for the industry or the consumers. And with all the scams that are around, I think we need to tighten that loop now, and we need to make some changes. Otherwise, that loophole's going to be exploited, and we're all going to be losing because of it, and we're all basically going to be tarred with the same brush. So we need to keep our integrity, and we need to keep our industry alive for the future. Thanks for watching.